Hello everybody, we are back with another cast. This time I will be casting a game of FAF, if anybody is interested in that. FAF is definitely one of my favorite Total Annihilation games, but as I've said before, I love all the TA games. They're all really cool. Except for 0K. I just never could get into 0K. I don't know why. But I did say on my channel update, guys, if you haven't seen my channel update, I encourage you to go watch it. I did say that I would occasionally be casting other games in the franchise, in the TA universe. And this felt like a good opportunity to do it. This is a 1v1 on a map called Twin Rivers. And it actually reminds me a lot of the TA escalation map, or the map that's played quite a bit in 1v1s called Aramon Chili Rivers. It's a really similar layout. You've got this kind of main landmass and then the two islands on the side with the rivers in between here. So very cool, very interesting design, and it does lead to a lot of interesting gameplay. And let me just introduce the players here. EcoNoob, he's playing Seraphim. Now, if you haven't played Forge Alliance before, then you may not know there are 4 different factions, and Seraphim is like it's the alien faction. They have they're an interesting faction. They're one of the strongest starting factions, and T2 they arguably have the strongest commander as well. But they also have a lot of glaring weaknesses, and they have the least units out of any faction in the game. They are the expansion faction, the Forge Alliance expansion. And then in blue we have, I think you pronounce this Swkoll, or I don't even want to pronounce that, but yeah, he's playing UEF, and the UEF is just kind of the basic human faction. It's the most defensive faction in the game. The buildings and the units have like the most health, and in some ways it's the most straightforward faction of all the factions in Forged Alliance. It kind of is the beginner faction, but definitely easy to learn, hard to master. Certainly you can be quite pro with UEF. And blue, building 2 land factories and then an air factory. So there are actually a lot of similarities between like FAF and a game like TA Escalation. You do need air control, like I was talking about in my last cast on Hell on Earth. Air control is very important. And right now both players just kind of sending through some raiding parties, trying to get a little bit of harassment done, just like you would see in OTA. Those players looking for those quick, easy mech snipes, the metal extractor snipes. In this game they're called mass extractors, but it's pretty much the same thing. There's not much of a difference there. So at the beginning of the game, pretty standard starts from both players. And already both players building some interceptors. Let me just speed up the game a little bit. And you can see here, just as you might see in OTA, you know, that the players are sending out these little raiding parties, try to get some economic damage done. Blue with a striker here. Of course, he's not microing it very well, and it does get destroyed by that FAM. These are essentially, like, you could compare them to flashes or stumpies. And but one big difference in this game that's interesting is that the commander in FAF is quite a bit stronger than they are in like OTA or mods like Escalation. Commander is quite a beef tank, or a beefcake with 12,000 health, the UEF one at least. And they are quite hard to kill, but let me slow this down here. As you can see here, commanders, they're not invincible, but they are quite impressive, and especially when upgraded, they can quite easily take out a whole army on their own. And you might be saying, well, I mean, they can do that in, you know, in escalation, but what I'm saying is they don't even need the D-gun. You know, imagine a commander in escalation taking out a whole army with just its regular laser. So, you know, in FAF, the commanders do have a weapon, kind of like the D-gun, called Overcharge. It's not exactly the same. It's nowhere near as powerful as the D-gun, but it's kind of the same principle. It's like a heavily charged shot that does a ton of damage, and really useful for taking out like clumped groups of units, or taking out bigger, higher tier units that have a lot of health. But already we can see the players going for the side islands, and red has taken this western island. But blue has also established a foothold here and built a land factory there, so that we'll have to see who gets control of that island. But red moving in with a transport here, and he's going to drop off a whole group of THAMs. That's very cool. He's going to drop off those tanks, and that might spell the end for this particular land factory, if they can actually hit it. But red is upgrading his commander here with gun speed and range, so he's upgrading his gun. And in Forged Alliance, the commanders can be upgraded from pretty early on to be impressively powerful. And kind of, as I said, armies unto themselves. Of course, you can also upgrade them in other ways. You can make them like more builders, like an economic powerhouse, or like builders. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Typically, though, when a commander goes for the gun, speed, and range, they're what is known as a battle commander, so they are meant to be used in combat, in the fray. And let's see, what's blue doing here? Blue's commander is kind of idle. That's a bit of a mistake. Generally in this game, you do not want to just let your commander sit around. You definitely want to keep those commanders moving, keep them doing something. They are a huge asset, just kind of like in the original game. But red's commander has now been upgraded. You can see that massive gun on his right arm there. That's pretty scary looking, and you might want to see that in combat, or we might get the opportunity to see that in combat. But as I said, once the commander is upgraded in this game, it's quite devastating to watch. Now, red, the Seraphim player, is already building some Ilshivos, and Ilshivo, it's basically, in my opinion, it's the best T2 ground unit in the game. They're just, it's a walker type unit, and it's a nice combination of firepower, damage, speed, and fire rate. It's kind of all around amazing. So it is sort of terrifying once your opponent gets those Ilshivos onto the battlefield. And blue here, I'm just going to call him Swkoll. I doubt that's how you pronounce it, but that's what I'm going to say. Getting back here with a few tanks for some economic harassment. And can he get this extractor, which is upgrading to T2? He's very close, just a few more shots. And oh my god, is red going to save this? Oh, he barely saves it. One more shot would have taken out that mass extractor. So, wow, very well done there. And here we go. We get to see red's commander with that massive gun upgrade. And blue just going to retreat all his units here because he realizes probably almost immediately that red's commander is upgraded and does not want to take that fight at all. But in the meantime, blue has, it seems, transported some pillars here. Pillar, the T2 UEF main battle tank. It would kind of be like the equivalent to a Bulldog, or maybe a Goliath, or a Reaper. But yeah, thing about the pillars is they do a lot of DPS, but their fire rate isn't the best, so they can get swarmed by T1 units, and that is what will happen here. This pillar will eventually fall So red does still have control of the north there. And red moving his commander in here. EcoNoob moving his commander in. You can see this commander does a lot of damage, and it has a pretty huge range. And continuing to move his commander in. But Swkoll's commander also upgraded now. So he should be able to fight him. And now blue moving his whole army in towards the red commander as well. But yeah, the commander will outrange all of the T1 stuff. So red also moving in an army through the northwest here to try to get some harassment done. And the thing is, the UEF commander is interesting. His weapon upgrade doesn't have the same firing speed, but it just does a ton of damage, so each shot is so powerful. Very, very damaging, and it's kind of the philosophy of the UEF in general, this kind of slow, powerful force that's hard to deal with. But yeah, now the commander's shooting at one another. And there is a point defense surrounded by essentially Dragon's Teeth in this game. That is also a thing in this game. The Dragon's Teeth surrounding the point defense, just like you would see in Escalation or other forms of TA. But yeah, the commander's just trading some blows here. And in the meantime, a field engineer here building a T2 point defense. The T2 point defense, I don't know what to compare it to. It would be something like a Guardian or like a heavy laser tower, something, right? It's like or maybe it would be like a toaster almost. But anyways, you can see it's called the Triad. It shoots out these 3 shots, and it has quite a range. So it's an effective defense with a pretty large firing radius. And you can see every time it hits that commander, it'll do quite a bit of damage. Commanders are really tanky in this game, or the mod, or whatever, but they're not invincible, and you can't take too many shots from those point defenses before you start hemorrhaging health. Here in the top left, blue has a Flapjack, which is the mobile missile launcher. And these are kind of like Merles, I guess. Merle or Diplomat. These 2 commanders continuing to duke it out and just kind of take pot shots at each other. They're both at about half health. And blue, with a sneaky transport here, going to try to do an airdrop of some combat units here in the back line, see if he can get some harassment done. But red prepared for that, and he's going to bring his fighters in. He's going to take out that transport pretty quickly, so there that goes. And yeah, we'll have to see how much harassment blue can get done with this this little raiding force that he transported there. But red does seem to be mostly prepared for this. And I doubt it will do too much. But red now moving forward with his army, and like I was saying before, those Ilshavos, extremely powerful in the mid game. It's in my opinion the best T2 unit in the game. So, but blue does have a lot, and he's got shields as well. Shields increase the longevity of your mobile forces quite significantly, especially because once the shields go down, they will recharge. So unless you kill the shield generator, the unit, this parashield, will provide kind of infinite value. It's, in other words, you have to kind of micro to target these shield generators, or they'll just keep regenerating their shields and increasing the effective health pool of this army dramatically. So that is one benefit of the UEF. They do get these T2 shield generators. Of course, they believe Seraphim gets T3 shield generators, which are even stronger. But of course, it's a higher tech. But yeah, as I said, these Ilshevos DPS, absolutely outrageous. And blue may retreat here. Now, one interesting thing that again, I don't even. We're just gonna call him Swkoll. One thing that he's doing is building some clink hammers, and the clink hammer is like a T2 artillery installation. So it's kind of like a Bertha. I mean, you could think of it that way. It doesn't quite have the range of a Bertha, but essentially that's the idea. He's built a shield here, and he's going to try to siege his opponent's base. These are in range of Red's base, and Red with some sniper bots. The Seraphim do get these sniper bots that are pretty long range, and they do a lot of damage as well. They have a pretty long cooldown on their shot, but yeah, as you can see, Red's commander quite a threat, and blue moving forward with a little raiding force here to the top left, but I don't expect him to get too much done. Red does seem to be prepared for that, so. But again, blue building this staging base here, or this kind of artillery base near Red's main base, it's an interesting option. As I said, these clink hammers will slowly but surely shell Red's position. As you can see, the cooldown on the clink hammers is it's a little long. Of course, you can lower the cooldown quite a bit if you build some power generators around it. But just building more clink hammers, and yeah, each clink hammer shot is pretty devastating to the targets it hits. So Red building some snipers here to counter that, and I don't know if that'll be enough. But oh wow, okay, yeah, those snipers just actually took out a clink hammer, and they must have taken out the shield generator too. So great use of those snipers, and blue now reclaiming his clink hammer just because these snipers are so effective. Oh my god, you can see like each shot they're absolutely chunking. Swkoll's commander here, he's got to get out of there, and in the meantime blue's going to counterattack into Red's base. These snipers are pretty good for sieging, but they're not so great in direct combat like this. But Red's commander is very powerful here, and he will have something to say about this attack. How much can blue get done here? It's hard to say. He is moving units into Red's base, but he needs to pick a target here. If he could kill this power generator, that would be huge. T3 power generator is kind of like a fusion or an antimatter reactor. But it just doesn't seem like blue really has enough here to break the base or really get too much accomplished there. So he may have taken some pressure off of himself in the middle by distracting his opponent. But those snipers are still there, and blue's commander forced to retreat just because he was getting absolutely decimated. But in the meantime, blue continuing to attack, and he will attack down the left side as well. So blue is now on T3 building Percivals, and Percival is how do I describe it? It's called an armored assault bot, but it's kind of like, I guess you could kind of think of it like a sniper, the armed T2 sniper bot. They do a ton of front-loaded damage at a decent range, but they're also pretty tanky as well. So it's not exactly like the sniper or the sharpshooter, but that's essentially it. The Percival is meant to take out. It's kind of like an anti-tank tank almost. It's like a really beefy mech designed to counter bigger units, like maybe you could think of it as like a penetrator type unit. Of course, it doesn't have the range of a penetrator. It's meant to get in closer than that. So, but Red with some T3 of his own. The siege tank it's an interesting unit as well. The siege tank is it's kind of an amphibious all around. It's a really well-rounded T3 unit. So it has a pretty high fire rate. It has several different weapons, and really a jack of all trades type unit. Now Percivals in equal numbers will just take these apart, because Percivals are designed to kill units like this. But you know, siege tanks in general are strong, and like I said, they are amphibious, so they are a really well-rounded unit. And we'll have to see what red can do with these. Blue moving a fighter bomber through, and he will drop some napalm on the ground. Maybe try to slow this advance just a little bit. Just a tiny bit. But that won't be enough to stop those. And in the meantime, on the east side, EcoNoob also moving down with even more siege tanks. So that's a lot of siege tanks. But blue does have some shields here, but as you can see, these siege tanks have a pretty high DPS. And they are just kind of tearing this base to shreds in rapid fashion. That's impressive. So yeah, T3 units are nothing to scoff at, and that way it's just like Escalation. T3 units are very strong, and just like in Escalation, T3 units, if not countered by other T3 units, are typically overpowering. You know, if you think about Escalation, like T3 units in Escalation, you know, crush the lower tiers. Typically speaking, they're just much stronger than the lower tiers of units. So you either need a lot of T1 and T2 to kind of overwhelm them, or you need to get to T3 yourself. Also bombing, I mean, obviously you could do bombing runs as well, but red with a transport of some kind, and I don't know where he's taking that. He might just be trying to fortify his top left island there. But blue building a shield on his commander, and that is complete, and you can kind of see there that shimmer is the shield that his commander now has, so he will... oh, it doesn't tell me how much extra health it gives him, but anyway, that will give him quite a bit of extra health. And the shields also do regenerate. But, oh, yeah, red doing this drop here. Right into blue's main base. And going for this fusion reactor, T3 reactor, and he might get it. But, oh, blue moving his shield in range. The shield blocking the shots, and oh my god, this reactor just lives with a sliver of health. EcoNoob kind of laughing in the chat. But, oh, in the meantime, EcoNoob moving forward with this squad of siege tanks. It's seemingly unstoppable force. Blue just doesn't have enough in this area to stop this siege. Just rolling through. And red also doing another drop. But blue does have a fighter, and will he kill it before he drops? Nope. The dropship does manage to land those siege tanks just in time before the transport is destroyed. If that transport was destroyed a second earlier, everything on it would have died. But red doing a really good job with his drops here, and also doing a good job, I would say, of like when he drops his units, he pushes forward on other fronts so as to kind of keep his opponent off balance. It's a really interesting tactic because as blue is trying to focus on one front, he's pushing in on another front. And blue's commander with the shield here and the gun upgrade should be able to handle these Autumns, the siege tanks. But so now the question is, how much damage can they do before they're finally killed? Blue does have a broadsword here, which is a T3 gunship, and those are quite impressive. They have 6,000 health, which is quite a bit in this game. And just one gunship can put out a lot of DPS, especially if you don't have any anti-air. So red sending his whole air force to kill this one gunship. And but as you can see, T1 air against T3 in this game It will take a little bit, but they do finally kill it. And there's another gunship here. But yeah, they have a lot of health. But yeah, they will eventually go down. So again, yeah, FAF is kind of like escalation in that way too. You know, T3 air obviously much stronger than T1 air. It takes a lot of T1 air to takes a lot of T1 to kill T3 air. But yeah, red continuing this aggression all across the map, and blue's base in a way has kind of been torn asunder. The this whole right side down here looking pretty nasty. Red certainly seems to have at least a lead in this game, but as I said before, Percival's are pretty good against siege tanks. And yeah, there are some Percivals here. So Percivals really are designed to counter other T3 units. Like I said, it's hard to know what to compare them to in escalation, because they're kind of like a combo of like a cannon and a penetrator. They have a decent range, or like a cannon and a sharpshooter. Yeah, they have a lot of health and they do a lot of damage, so they're kind of a tanky. It's an anti-tank mech, if you will. Their firing rate isn't the highest, but that's kind of what makes them like a penetrator. But they have a lot of health. But as you can see, each shot doing a ton of damage here. And they just eat those siege tanks for breakfast. And you've already seen in this game how powerful siege tanks are, and they just eat them alive. And really the best counter to Percivals in some ways is just to surround them like this. Their firing rate is relatively slow. So if you just overwhelm them with threats, they struggle to keep up. But here in the middle, a battle between Percivals and siege tanks. And as I said before, Percivals will typically come out on top of this in equal numbers because they are designed for this kind of engagement. So, but no, I have to say Blue did a good job of counterattacking up here. He did take out all this metal and keeping the game relatively even. There looks to be a big air battle here in the bottom, and Blue really needs some ground-based air defense. He doesn't want to just let Red fly over his base with impunity. It's just like escalation, especially in those team games where if you have enough air defense on the ground, like enough flaks and slingers and all those structural air defense, you know, you kind of want to create a no-fly zone over your base so that you can protect your own air force as you're rebuilding it, and kind of stop your opponents from scouting you easily. Just give yourself that advantage in your own space to not let your opponent just fly over your base with impunity. So that is an interesting that Red hasn't built much air defense, but Blue hasn't built much air defense over his base, and he will do that now. He is, it looks like, building some air defense to prevent that from happening. But Red going for another drop here, and dropping off a lot of I think they're called Zuis, or that's how they're pronounced, Zui. It's a T1 artillery bot. These are not that strong, but they are pretty good at taking out buildings if they're just left alone. Of course, we have a broadsword here to take care of all that, so those won't get too much accomplished. That drop wasn't extremely effective, but Red with some gunships here, and he will, with these gunships, slowly kill this army unless Blue brings some air defense into the fray. But Red does seem to have air control, so I don't know that Blue can stop this attack. And Red continuing to send forward armies of siege tanks. which, as we've already seen, Blue has struggled with throughout this game, and it has really been a problem for him to stop these siege tank pushes. So let's see what's going on in the bases here. Let's see, just Red just building some T3 power generators, which, like I said, are kind of like antimatter reactors. And Blue upgrading Eco as well. So nothing too out of the ordinary on the home front, but Red does have a transport here, and he will be dropping off some siege tanks onto Blue's little island here. So Blue going to react almost immediately, bringing all of these artillery into battle. But here's the problem, guys. T1 versus T3. It's kind of exactly what you would expect. If you're playing escalation, T3 is it really eats T1 alive. It's not much of a contest. So even though Blue has a lot of units here, I mean, just looking at the sheer kind of number, you might think he has the advantage, but T3 is just so strong. And Red doing a good job of actually microing these siege tanks so that he's not getting hit by the artillery shells. Artillery in this game does have a delay. I mean, it has an arc, so there is a delay between when it's fired and when it hits the ground. So you can micro out of the out of range of that. And Red, with just these 4 siege tanks, may clear this entire bottom island. Needs to keep those moving, though. Don't let those artillery shots hit his units for free. And if he can take out this factory, that would be pretty big. But now this one broadsword has moved in. And this gunship, yeah, it might actually be enough to take all these siege tanks out by itself if Red does not bring any air defense. So broadswords are really strong, and this broadsword has 18 kills, 19 kills. So that is a tanky broadsword. It has, if you look at the bottom left, it has 3 stars of veterancy, almost 8,000 health. So that thing has been an absolute monster this game. It has been worth its weight in gold in defending Blue, his bases, from all these siege tank aggression. Of course, siege tanks do not have any air defense, so they are vulnerable to air attack. But EcoNoob here now working on a Ythotha, which is the T4 experimental assault bot, the Seraphim version. And these are called chickens. That's what the community calls them. That's the colloquial term. It is the term in modern parlance for the Seraphim experimental walker. And if left unchecked, those can easily win games. And let's see what's going on in Blue's base. He is building a Fat Boy. The Fat Boy is essentially, it's the UEF land battleship. It's kind of like a battleship on wheels. It has these massive battleship cannons. And it rolls on the ground. It has aircraft pads, so aircraft can land on it and repair, refuel. And it also acts as a factory. It can build units and just roll them off the assembly line as well. So it's an interesting unit too. And Red pushing in here again. Blue has walled off with essentially Dragon's Teeth. He's walled off this area. Now Red could probably kill that pretty easily, but we will fast forward it a little bit here. Blue now making some cruisers in the sea. Cruisers are kind of like rangers, I guess, from Escalation. They can shoot missiles at structures on the land from a massive range. So that will be annoying, and Red has to deal with that. But yeah, this Ythotha is completed, and this is, oh man, it's quite scary. But here's the problem. Fat Boys do a lot of damage, and they do damage from a massive range. So Fat Boys are actually good counter to other experimentals because they can keep them at a distance with their battleship cannons, kind of kite them to death. So this Ythotha, it's a chicken, is powerful, and it can tear through a whole army, but a Fat Boy can outrange it and slowly kill it with its massive cannons from much further than it can attack. So we'll have to see what happens here. Blue working on a second Fat Boy, and as I think earlier, as we were seeing, Red working on his second experimental assault bot. But this will come down to micro. If this walker can get into range of the Fat Boy, it will kill it almost instantly. But if Blue is microing the Fat Boy, he should be able to keep it out of range of that experimental for infinitely. You can just kite it till it's dead. So it really does come down to player's skill. And as you can see, the Fat Boy now firing its cannons. Pretty huge range, and these cannons are accurate and deadly. But a second chicken now on the field. And we're going to have to see how these players want to engage, because I think Blue should be done with his second Fat Boy now. Don't know where it is, but yeah. Red is going to move down with this Ythotha. And moving down this side as well, but as I said before, it is now in range of that Fat Boy, and the Fat Boy will chunk it down with this long-range damage. You can see how quickly it's dying to the Fat Boy shots. So that is a problem. That's the reason that the Fat Boys are a good counter, because here, let's slow it down. As you can see, the Fat Boy can outrange this and just kite it to death with these massive cannons. And the chicken really can't get in range of the Fat Boy that easily. So you can see its health here just dropping. And it didn't really accomplish too much there before it finally went down. So nicely done there by Blue. But another chicken here in the bottom left. Another one of Red's tactics of distracting his opponent on one front and then sending a sneaky second attack on another front. And once these chickens get into your base, it's absolutely devastating. It has three main weapons. It's kind of like got a Gatling cannon on its arm here. It's got like a beam or a pulse laser on the other arm. And then its head shoots like a plasma grenade. That it's pretty slow, but it explodes and kills everything in a huge AoE. I don't know what that one was going for. But it is in range of this Fat Boy now, and these chickens can kill Fat Boys in just seconds. So this Fat Boy has to be careful. It will barely survive, but just a couple more seconds and that Fat Boy would have died. But no, a good defense there by Red. He does end up protecting both fronts. But now, I mean, a good defense by Blue, who ends up protecting both of those attacks. He stops both of the chickens. But now Red building these experimental bombers that I was mentioning in the last cast. The T4 bombers that drop nuclear bombs, as you can see there. And here, let's slow it down a little bit. These nuclear bombs that it drops are absolutely devastating, and they will take out entire armies or bases if undefended. So here comes another bomb onto that fat boy, and let's see what it does. It does get his shields down to about half. Shields are one counter to the experimental bomber. If there are shields, it can stop one bomb, but there are no shields over Blue's base here. Boom. And there it goes. That's that bomber just absolutely devastating him. And given that Red has air control here, it's going to be really hard to stop this experimental bomber from just picking apart Blue's whole base. Essentially with these atomic bombs that the bomber can continuously drop over the enemy's base. This is kind of like the Aurora from Escalation. And yeah, wow. Each bomb's so devastating. And Red had air control, so Blue just can't do that much about it. Even though he did a really good job, even though Swkoll did a really good job of continuously pushing Red's attacks back, he just was not ready for this atomic bomber, or this experimental bomber, and it is just wreaking havoc in his base. And now a second bomber moving in as well. Blue in so much trouble here. He now no longer has power to even keep his commander's shield active. So these experimental bombers here just on a rampage, and now going, looks like committing straight to Blue's commander, and he will self-destruct before they can get the finishing blow. But that was it, guys. That was a pretty interesting game. It was pretty close, and a lot of interesting tech and play that we saw there. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this cast. I do occasionally cast different types of games, but let me know if you enjoyed this. It is fun to branch out and kind of see what else is going on in the TA community. But alright guys, until the next cast, I will talk to you later.